Welcome back, everybody, to another show of the AllStar MMA Live. And this week is going to be a duo. Me and J Spec. Sicko is having some trouble at his home, I believe. What was it?
The
The
AC went
electricity?
out.
Oh, the AC went out, and you can't have the AC go out, especially
Not
with the
right
heat.
now. This
With
heat
the heat
wave.
that's going crazy, right? So,
Mm-mm.
so I don't know how hot Texas is, but it must be hot enough to the point where he can't, be at home
Brother, they're in the
without the
hundreds.
AC.
Upper,
Okay.
I think they're in the hundreds, man. So that's nothing to play with.
All right. Damn. Well, shout out to Sicko. He'll be back for next week's show, and it will be a trio again. We might have somebody stop by. I don't know, like last week. We have some guests shoot through, but we'll see. So stay tuned. Everybody, make sure you guys go in the descriptions and download the All Star app. Make sure you go in there and utilize the picks option. You can, join the growing community. You could pick all the fights all the way down to the method and to the round, and win prizes, man. Join J Spec's league. J Spec, tell them about the league, and you got some interesting giveaways going down soon.
Yeah, my friend. Thank you for mentioning that. So, on the wonderful All Star Sports app, you can join contests. One of those contests I suggest you join, besides the greater community contest, is mine, the J Specs Prize League, where you have two chances a month to win autographed memorabilia. Giving it away to the best picker of the month, so champion of the month receives it. Also, during pay-per-view events, which happen once a month as well, the best picker within our watch party, within our spaces on Twitter Spaces. Follow me right there on that handle. Every UFC event, we've been throwing it down for a while now, and a great community there. So you can be the best picker just in that space on that night. Have it be your lucky night and win prizes, just like at Bald Guy MMA has, and at Preston Kesselring has too. So it's a good time. But to the other cool stuff that John mentioned, autograph T-shirt giveaway coming directly from Marcus Maniac McGee. Thank you so much for your donation to us, sir. Giving away some fight shirts that you can't even buy. There's only a limited amount of them made. So unless you got them straight from Marcus yourself, you can't get them nowhere. We'll be posting that on my Twitter later on how you can win all that. So there you go, John. That's what's going on in our league.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So make sure you guys go in the description and download that and join, man, and get started right away. You need probably a couple weeks to get used to picking fights. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna start picking with your heart and not with your head. So if you want to take it seriously and win prizes, and there's no investment, there's no cost, go in there and join the league. And yeah, man, you might not be good at it, you think in your mind, but you might be good at it. So get on it. Last weekend, UFC Vegas 77 went down, and what is that?
Marcus's socials, I was slow on it, so I was just adding it
Oh,
in
okay,
there.
so that comes with a T-shirt.
Yeah, no, that's just his socials that he sent. So I wanted to get
Okay,
it on screen for everybody.
all right,
Follow the
sounds
man.
good.
Thank you for that donation, autograph memorabilia.
All right, Marcus McGee, shout out to him, and yeah, a very very nice guy. Not many people out there are gonna just send you things in the mail for free, especially something that cost, what I mean, some cash
Exactly.
to make to create. So Marcus McGee, friend of the show, friend of J Spec, all good every day, all day, and yeah, man, I'm glad he's in the UFC. I've interviewed him in the past before when he was in the regional league. So it's good to see some guys, make it to the top, so to say. Yes, back to UFC Vegas 77. We had a couple interesting fights, a couple what is it, standout performances and breakout performances, you can say.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a lot of violence going on over the weekend, and we're gonna go through all of it and some other tidbits, and we'll talk about at the end of the show we'll talk about these rumors that are coming out about the UFC already buying Bellator, and another topic we'll get into is, what is the other topic? Oh, Jamal Lewis, or it's not Jamal Lewis, Jamal Hill vacating the title, that whole situation, and what's going to happen with the light heavyweight division. But before we jump into all of that stuff, let's get into the main event of UFC Vegas 77 that went down in the Apex. And we had Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Holly Holm. Holly Holm, she was in there doing her usual thing, clinching, dancing around, a lot of movement, you know what I mean? A lot of sounds. And Mayra stayed patient and waited for her opportunities. And her opportunity came in the second round, 38 seconds, standing ninja choke, submission, a beautiful, beautiful move. And man, I've been saying this since the earlier this year. I told everybody that Mayra Bueno Silva will be a title contender or will be fighting for the title by the end of the year. And it could be a possibility. But let's just talk about the performance. Mayra Bueno Silva, J-Spec, what'd you think of it? Everybody that's listening, drop a message, drop a comment of how you thought Holly Holm did, how you thought, Silva did. But J-Spec, how'd you think they did?
Man, it was playing out exactly like I was hoping it was going to. Holly showing the cards like she was going to strike, using her movement early, then pressing her at will and kind of holding her against the cage during her clinch work and clinch wrestling. But yo, MBS, what can you say? Grand Slam performance. Like she's another one of those where she keeps winning and she keeps going under the radar. There's a few fighters like that in the league. She's one of them. A lot of people just kind of pass her off. I did not do that in this contest, even though I was hoping home won, so that's why I picked her. I was wrong on that, and I'm not a much of a gambling or odds guy, but just like John knows, I'm sure all of you watching know, pretty impressive being the only betting underdog to hit. So MBS, underdog in every format coming through last night. Very awesome.
Yes. And she was the only betting underdog that came through.
I'm
Everybody was
pretty
the
sure
favorite.
of it.
Wow.
I'm looking at the list right now via the AllStar Sports app. You can see it. And
Okay.
I am, yep.
Oh, that's right. Let me get the app on the screen and show you guys some of the statistics from the fight. Let's see what we got here. All right, here we go. Okay, so here we go. So some of the fight statistics. Holly Holm was outlanding Silva, but I think Silva's game plan was to basically, try to get as close as possible to get in the clinch. You know what I mean? Something that Holly Holm wants to do, but Silva has the submission game. And once she gets you in tight, she can throw up stuff like we just saw in the finish, that she could do a standing ninja choke and finish the fight. I'm pretty sure she could do that on the ground. She could probably do in many different positions. Holly Holm, 50 total strikes landed. Silva, 31. Significant strikes, very similar. When you look at control time, Holly Holm had more control time because earlier I think in the first round, she held Silva down or held her against the fence, right, on the cage, I believe. Did they ever go to the ground?
It was no takedowns attempt.
No, no takedowns.
No
Well, there
takedowns
was an
achieved.
attempt.
Only one.
There was an
One
attempt.
attempt. Well, yeah, one attempt by Holm, and that's why you gotta love these stats, right? When you bring misses those small details. But yes, John, it was all clinch work against the cage. That's where Holm was gaining that control time.
It's crazy that Silva's named. Her preferred style is she's considered a striker, right? But I think she can do it all, man. She's more of a complete mixed martial artist compared to, let's say, a Holly Holm. You know what I mean? We don't see that much of Holly Holm's ground game. We do see it in the let's go back. We have seen it in the past. We have seen her taking girls down and control them, but not really like a submission threat, right? She's not gonna like go in there with the jiu-jitsu black belt and roll around and throw up counters to submit.
Yeah.
That's not her game. Her game is to strike, play distance, a lot of kicks, clinch, and sometimes go to the ground if she can, if she has the advantage there. She's really like strong physically, but I don't know. Maybe the age is catching up to her. She's in her 40s. You know what I mean? Not many girls or women are fighting in their 40s. What do you think? Do you think she's getting old?
Hey, it's not me. It's what the sport has dictated to us what near the upper echelon is. And this is no disrespect, Miss Holm putting the high water mark on women athletics. That's nothing to be ashamed of. 41 years old and still a very viable fighter. Look, she was doing very well. She just got caught in a submission by a very talented woman. That woman also 10 years younger. So be it. But as far as all-time great fighters go, there's many a case of men doing 42 seems to be right where your last hurrah could be. So she's right about there. So maybe women is this is a great case for women athletes being just as good as men in their own respective leagues and whatnot. So right here, Holly Holm going the distance, not in this fight, but career length, Iron Woman, if you will. Right? We always hear the term Iron Man. So with that being said, Holly Holm, maybe, right? We know that time isn't friendly to striker-based fighters. I know she clinch wrestles more than ever before. She tries to play top game when she can, have the advantages, like you said, John. But yeah, Father Time catches all athletes at some point, and she's near that last part. So maybe it's like a light bulb, like the old-fashioned light bulbs, not the LEDs that flicker a little bit. She's probably got a couple, maybe one or two more fights in her where she can get the dub, but championship aspirations, I don't know. That was a rumor on the internet, right? Some people in the Holly Holm community were pushing for, hey, like let's get her a title shot, let one last run. You don't think that's gonna happen, huh, John?
It's hard to say. You know what I mean? You never know. Holmes just signed like an 8-fight deal, right? I think 2 fights ago. So she has a lot of fights left. She's still a ranked fighter in that division. If you look at her record right now. Look at her. She's only lost by finish, right, to Amanda Nunes and Misha Tate. The last time she was submitted was against Misha Tate in that title fight in 2016. She goes to the decision a lot. She's kind of found her formula, right? And this comment is kind of like perfect, right? It's like, when did Holly Holm stop being a mobile kickboxer and just start holding chicks on the fence? She's done that for a long time now.
The past couple of years, dude.
Yeah, she's found this formula to where she can win decisions off her movement, off her elusive striking, and then holding her opponents along the fence and using her strength and her cardio to do some dirty boxing, hit some elbows, knees, short punches, and if she can take him to the ground, she goes and takes him to the ground, and that's kind of like her style now. And
like you said, she's blended that striking with the grappling. When look in this fight, every time she separated from MBS, every time she separated from the clinch, that is to be specific, she pretty much was the first one in on some kind of strike. So yeah, I mean, what can you say?
Yeah, so like if you look at her decision, she even has a decision loss, to Vieira and Cyborg. She has that beautiful head kick knockout of Betch Correa, and the Ronda Rousey head kick loss or win against her. You know what I mean? Like she's done a lot of things. She's beaten a lot of major players in that division, but she's lost to a lot of the major players in the division. I don't think she's slowing down. I just think she made a mistake in this fight, and she's gonna go back. And I think she's like one of those obsessive athletes where she's gonna go back and be obsessive about jiu-jitsu and defending chokes and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because you never know what's going on in these fighters' camps. They could be focused on one aspect in particular and just continue with that and forget about the other parts of their game, and it catches up to them eventually. So we'll see what happens, right? So the big news is what happens to Silva, right? Like, what do we do with Silva now? Because Silva, what is she ranked? It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter what she's ranked. She just beat Holly Holm, right? And then if you look at her record right now, she's 10-2, 80% finishing rate. She's won 3 in a row. Actually 4 in a row now.
4 in a row
with Holly Holm, Landsberg, and these are 3 straight finishes as well, right? 3 submission wins in a row, 4 wins overall. Her last loss was against Manon Fiorot, which is, I believe, at flyweight, and all of her losses are all at flyweight. So when she was cutting too much weight, she wasn't herself, right? And you can't really dig too deep into a fighter when they're cutting too much weight. You know what I mean? They're learning their lesson, right? They're learning their lesson. It's not like she was in there and she was getting finished. You know what I mean? She was going to decision with these fighters, and Fiorot looks like she's eventually going to be a champion at flyweight. So that's not too terrible of a loss. But I think right now Silva has found her place and she's found her style. And I think this style can beat a lot of girls, a lot of girls, you know, especially with Amanda Nunes out. I would have loved to seen Amanda Nunes fight, uh, what is it, Silva, right? That would have been a great fight, but that's just not going to happen because Nunes is retired, or unless she comes back somehow, some way. What do you guys think? You know, watching right now, listening right now. What do you think of Silva's potential? What do you think is next for Silva? Do you want to see her fight for the title? Do you think it should be Rocky Pennington versus Juliana Pena? Do you think it should be Pena versus Silva? Do you think should it be Pennington versus Silva? There's a lot of options here, right? This weekend there's a fight between let me see. This weekend in London, there's a fight, a bantamweight contender fight between Caitlin Vieira and Pani Kianzad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are top 5 fighters right there, top 10 fighters, and they're fighting this weekend. That could also be an option for the next title fight. Who's more deserving? Like, how do you determine this, right? Do you think who's more popular? You know, who's killing it right now? If you're looking at who's killing it right now, Silva is, because she's got 3 straight finishes. She just beat a former champion and finished the former champion. So I'm pushing for Silva to get the next title shot against whoever it is. And most likely it's Pena, because Pena's out there talking so much. J-Spec, what do you think should be next for the title?
I'm all for Pena Pennington, just because I don't know the story with Rocky. I'm not even a big Pennington fan. I just think that's really cool for a fighter who's been in it a long time to have a second surge, if you will, in her career, late in her career, and to be able to snag the world title like that. That's an epic story and an epic cool thing to happen. So maybe a little fandom mixed in there for that vote. I don't have any problem with MBS fighting Pena either. I mean, how long are we gonna like? How long are we gonna see the UFC kind of make the same mistake of like letting some fighters roast too long? Like they're heating up now. They're flame hot fire. They're ready to be thrown at the title, and then for some reason they get dragged along, taken L in some other dumb way. Like I don't know. That get the woman who's winning, like you said, against. There's not. I'm not saying there's not a lot of famous female fighters, but not Holly Holm famous. I'm be honest, right? She can headline a card even still at this stage of her career, late in her career, mainlining, headlining this card like this. And now you have that passing of the torch moment of former champion gets dispatched by new young challenger. Like that's the trajectory like it should follow. But I don't know. The UFC is full of tricks nowadays. You never know. But anything with Pena in it, I guess, is fine with me.
All right. We got a comment from M. M is saying, I think Silva recently moved to AT&T. That's definitely true. She did move to AT&T or ATT. AT&T. I think a lot of people do that. Common mistake. If you lived in America. If you didn't live in America, you don't know what the hell AT&T is probably. Anyways, ATT, American Top Team. I really enjoy her style of fighting, and moving to 135 was a great move. Her fight with Manon was close too. Yeah, she's definitely skilled. And another thing that I like about her is that she's improving her English, and she's really utilizing that to get fights, man. Like people, you know, they latch onto that and they love what she's saying. Let's see some of the back and forth. Wait up, let me see. I gotta present this. Anyways, no, it's just a news article. Anyways, I'm trying to get it on the screen, but I don't know why it's not showing up. Let me see. It's weird.
Somebody started barking back and forth. That's what it was about.
Your browser has been blocked. Your screen. Click the screen icon in your address bar to access, then reload page. Where's this? Oh no, I'm not doing that. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Anyways, so the people's champ, Juliana Pena, she's dismissing Silva's recent win against Holly Holm. Did what's her name? Did Pena beat Holly Holm? Did they fight?
Quickly checking. I don't remember that if that ever happened. Nope, they never fought.
Yeah, they never fought. So I don't know why she's saying this. She tweeted out, "Did I hear someone say the name of the People's Champ? Perfect. Get in line. I'll do you and Raquel in the same night. Who else wants a beating?" Um, what do you think of Silva's like shit talking, or not Silva, Pennington's or Pena's shit talking skills?
I mean, as long as nobody takes it too seriously, just know that these characters created and followed through by fighters, it's part of the age we're in. You remember back in the day where everybody's wearing corny ass shitty shirts. Yeah, well, this is the age we're in where everybody feels like if you're above above the B level of a fighter, you need to be some kind of character. You need to be some kind of thing to work the microphone. Pena, hey, I like the lady. She had her moment in the sun. She did what many thought was impossible by just having that one fight. Now she has a second fight and we'll never know what the trilogy is, but that's not the point. She's learning how to work the media. She's learning how to form into the character that she's going with now. That wasn't always who she was or how she talked or how she went about things, but this is the way she's going about it now. And I don't have any problem with it, man. All the other dudes have characters that aren't really like them, but when you talk to them personally, so why not? Why not for the ladies? Why not, Pena? Good job. Stick with it. Don't break character. Be like Chael Sonnen. Rock it forever.
Um, M saying, "I'd like to see MBS versus Aldana or Vieira if it's not for the title." Yeah, those are good fights right there. I think those are good challenges. I think she beats both of those girls. Um, yeah, because both of those girls are strikers, and when they start to strike and they're not able to implement their game, MBS will take over. And yeah, I see her winning those fights. Early advantage for her in my eyes. She responded to Pena by saying, "She's funny. I love you, Juliana, but I will smash you. You and Raquel at the same time. Look at my fights. Look at her fights. Oh, Juliana, shut up." And I like Silva's responses to everything. Right? Pena's reminding me of um, Henry Cejudo. It's like the female version of Henry Cejudo, right? Like that's what's going on over here. She's saying things that are ridiculous, but the thing is, Henry Cejudo, there's a difference. Henry Cejudo is an Olympic gold medalist. He's a 2 division world champion. Like there's a difference between that, right? There's a difference. And Juliana Pena, she's won the title, but you know that's a big achievement in this sport, but she's not Henry Cejudo level. But the thing is,
Yeah,
the trash talk is the same though. I'm just trying to compare them. Trash
yeah.
talking is the same, and
It's
M is
both
saying that
cringy.
yeah, I don't know if it's a character Pena was like when she was on Tough. She kind of did this on Tough too. It's not like she wasn't like open, right, with her opinions. Like she did talk some trash on Tough as well. So yeah, she's just kicking it up. You know what I mean? Because she knows, like you said, to work the media will write about anything in MMA. You know what I mean? That's the thing. They'll write almost about anything as long as you are kind of in the news or a former champion or a top 5 fighter. You say, a mouse farted in my mouth, like that's gonna be on MMA news, right? It just happens
Absolutely.
like that. It's well, if it wasn't on MMA news, I'll be disappointed, right? If a mouse farted in Silva's mouth and that just didn't make it on, I'll be like, what are you guys doing? This is
You're
this is why you were put on the planet Earth, is to cover stories like this, to get the exclusives from the mouth, or not from the mouth, but from the
from
mouse.
into one mouth, from the mouse
Exactly,
into a
right?
mouth.
So let's kick it up. You know what I mean? Let's get some investigative journalism going on in MMA, and find out who has been farted in their mouth by a mouse. Let's just do it.
There's the
Ricky
challenge. I got 10
Ricky
bucks as a
Robles,
reward.
my brothers from a different mother. What's going on, Ricky? Yeah, so I think a lot of people agree, and hopefully the UFC does as well, that Silva, she is in a title eliminator fight next fight, or at least or fighting for the title. Those are the two options for Silva. Another main event definitely should be happening for her, right? She can get on the mic, and yeah, man, she's likable. That's one thing as well. I think her speaking English makes her a little bit more likable than the people that don't speak Portuguese, because if she's speaking Portuguese, we have no idea what she's talking about, right? You don't really feel the emotions too deep inside. But man, when she speaks English, you understand what's going on in her mind, and she's making the right moves. And yeah, man, I think I think she'd be the favorite to beat any of the girls you line her up against. I would put her as the favorite, and she was the underdog against Holly Holm. That's not gonna happen again. I don't
No,
think so. Let's see. Ricky saying? Did she just jump Pennington with that performance? I don't know if she jumped Pennington, but I say she beats Pennington. You know what I mean? I say that she goes in there, and they're gonna have a war, right? Her versus Pennington will be a war. Her versus Pena will be a war. But I think that Silva just has something in her where she can overwhelm her opponents. And we've seen Pennington quit on the stool in a championship fight, and Pena, we've seen her, like make big mistakes and get submitted. Right? We saw her get submitted by Valentina Shevchenko. Like, when's the last time you saw Valentina Shevchenko submit somebody? Never, right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens, though. I could eat my words. You know what I mean? I'm not underestimating any of these female fighters, but I see Silva being like number one in the division right now. I look at her as number one, and I'll be riding that until she becomes champion. Um, Anything else you want to add, Jay Specht, about this matchup and its implications?
no, I'm really fine with I'm fine with if Rocky gets jumped, I'm fine with it, but I would prefer like probably 60-40 split. I would prefer Rocky against Pena. That's, I guess, my final thoughts on that.
All right. And another problem is that a lot of these women are fighting each other again, and some of them they've already fought twice. And Silva, she hasn't fought any of these girls yet. She just fought Holly Holm, right? That's it. That's like a former champion. Now she's gonna fight another former champion or a top contender, and they're all fresh matchups. So if she becomes champion, every matchup will be pretty much a fresh matchup for her, which would be nice.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Now let's move on to the co-main event. We had Jack Della, Maddalena, JDM facing off against the newcomer. I don't know, newcomer. My brain is just not functioning, man. I had a hefty week, and I'm just catching up on my sleep. Yeah. So, anyways, newcomer Basil Hafez. Is that how you say it? Basil or Basil? Do you know how to say it, J Spec?
They were saying it Basil. They were saying it
Okay.
Basil. My gut feeling is Basil, but they said Basil on the TV. So.
Okay, Basil Hafez or Hafiz. He comes in on short notice and gives Jack Della a hell of a fight. Was Jack Della exposed in this fight? Did we see some chinks in the armor, J Spec?
I don't think so. I don't think anything bad of Jack Della Maddalena. That's the last time I'm going to say it. And say JDM from here on out. I got it out the first time. Woo! This is nothing against him, dude. He just fought a man who was about his shit. Like, Hafez had 4 days notice. He was in shape enough. He had the grappling skills enough. He came in and fought a ranked fighter literally out of nowhere, folks. Like, definitely put some respect on Hafez's name. It has nothing to do with badness and JDM. The only question I had, and I said it during our spaces, Ricky, who's actually Sicko, but it's weird to call him Ricky because we call him Sicko so much. Ricky was there. Ricky knows. Like, the question I asked was, hey, he peaked for a fight that's supposed to happen a week ago. Lucky stars, he gets rebooked the very next week after and gets bumped to co-main. All great stuff for you, buddy. No, that's awesome. But the reality is, you had an athlete who perfectly timed their body cycle to peak last week, not this week. So could that have had a little bit of little mustard stain on the shirt? Maybe that was that slight half step off that he seemed to be sometimes. He made a couple of grappling mistakes, as pointed out. Ricky would, well, if he was with us, our third amigo in this group, he would like to point that out. But he won the fight against a game bird, against a guy who threw it out there. I mean, Beso had so many excuses, not just excuses. I'm not going to say excuses. Rewind. He had so many instances, not excuses, where he was catching the dirty end of the stick and he could have just kind of shelled up, rolled over, and took the TKO. But the man kept fighting through, finding time on the ground. Look at the ground control time, excuse me, on this stats. I mean, 6 minutes 48 seconds. That's a lot of time. So he had some really shining moments. That is Hafez, and I don't take anything away from JDM, not at all. Good for him. Another advocate, to me, another case and another feather in his hat, so to speak, for why he's a legitimate contender and deserves to be ranked.
Hafez, he had a lot of control time in, I believe, in round 2 and 3. But the thing was, like, he was just controlling him. Like, he wasn't really doing any kind of damage. But it was also JDM's fault for not getting up. You know what I mean? Finding spots to get back up to his feet so he could, take advantage of the striking. Yeah, so like a lot of people saying that that Basil won. Justin Gaethje, Kamaru Usman he tweeted out that was a tough decision, but they got it wrong. Capoza thought Jack won. Ariel said, I wonder if those 2 weight cuts are coming back to haunt JDM. Aaron Bronstetter, he got a JDM. And
Dang,
a lot of people talking about the 2 weight cuts.
Yeah,
that
I didn't even know
up.
that many people were talking about it. We talked about it live. I just kind of went with JDM because he's young, right? He's still a really good fight age, peak really time. So I thought, hey, you know what? It's harder to do. Double weight cuts definitely suck, but he's young. He should, because it doesn't work out so great for the older fighters. We've seen a lot of case examples for that. But maybe, man, we don't know what's inside these warriors' bodies until we get to talk to them, if they ever talk about it at all.
Well, there's a lot of instances in fighting where a guy is highly skilled, a lot of hype, and they kind of get away with the win. They get away with the win a little bit. Like, they're not performing at their best, and they're maybe performing at their worst, and they still beat the guy that they're facing. Maybe it's a little help from the judges, maybe it's mistakes by their opponent. It all depends what it is, right? But they squeak past. I think that's the instance of this fight for JDM. I feel like he wasn't fighting up to his potential. It could have been the weight cuts. It could have been, anxiety. It could have been whatever. Whatever it is, right? It could have been. But I think this is an instance. There's a couple instances like Sean O'Malley when he fought Peter Yan. He squeaked past that, right? Like, there's a lot of people thought he lost that fight. He squeaked past that. He kind of got lucky on the judges' scorecards. But he squeaked past it, though. You know what I mean? At his, maybe he was performing at his best. It wasn't his best, but Peter Yan just didn't perform better than he did. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like that style, that instance of a fighter, squeaking by. And it happened. And people are going to underestimate JDM in his upcoming fight. And I think that's a terrible idea. Don't underestimate JDM at all, because, he might have showed you his weakest performance, but he still won. You know what I mean? There's a lot of examples of that in the past. Let's go to M again. He says, JDM has 3 different opponents in the same amount of weeks. Most guys would have just went home after the second fell out. I want to see JDM versus Holland next. Yes, I want to see JDM versus Holland. I want to see JDM versus somebody with a name. You know what I mean? Somebody with like a good following. I think either way, right? To be honest, like, I don't even think they should put the Sean Brady fight back together, because Sean Brady, he just keeps getting injured now. It's just like, that's what happens to him. And hopefully he recovers quick. But I think Sean Brady should go in another direction. And JDM needs to fight a Kevin Holland. He needs to fight. But the thing is, Kevin Holland, he's not even a 170. He's a middleweight, though. You know what I mean? That's the problem. Like, I think people forget that Kevin Holland is not going to fight at 170. I think he's kind of like put himself at 185, or has he been fighting at 170?
No, he moved. Didn't he move? I thought he moved somewhat recently. Did. Yeah, I'm trying to look for him. I'm like, why can't I find you, dude? That's what I'm doing right at this second.
He's not even ranked.
Yeah,
right?
Not ranked.
He's not ranked in either category. He's not ranked, but he's always gotten the bigger fights, right? His last couple of fights. His last fight that I remember, the main event against Stephen Thompson. You know what I mean? Thompson was like, he's a top 10 fighter. Jack Della, I feel like Jack Della should get the winner of the Michael Chiesa. Who's Michael Chiesa fighting this weekend? He's fighting somebody. Oh, Chiesa's fighting Holland at 170. So he is 170. Okay. So I feel like Holland, win or lose, should fight Jack Della. Chiesa is another option. I think like this fight should determine who Jack Della fights next. The Holland versus Chiesa fight, right?
It's perfect
Hafez,
because
yeah, go ahead.
no, I say it's perfect because you just came off of a fight. They fight next. It'll take about the same amount of time to heal up. Blessing to all sides and
Yeah.
parties involved.
Let's see if they could do it in Abu Dhabi or something like that, right? That should give them enough time to turn it around.
Right.
JDM versus like a Jeff Neal would have been a good matchup, right? Ian Machado is fighting Jeff Neal next, but like they should push whatever they're doing for Ian Gary, they should be doing the same thing for Jack Della.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be fighting each other. But that's what they should be doing. They should be fighting
Absolutely.
the veterans of the division. You know what I mean? Like there's a couple that are not booked yet, right? Stephen Thompson, is he booked? He is booked against Pereira, right? So there's guys that are booked, but I think in the next couple of weeks things will shake out and JDM will have his moment, right? He will have his chance to break out.
He
I don't think
clearly
he's had the breakout performance yet.
No, he hasn't. He definitely hasn't peaked, shown us his very, very best yet. And two, obviously the UFC's got their eye on them. I think maybe they wanted a slightly better highlight reel finish maybe from him, like they always do. But think about it. He went from prelims to co-main event. He was a company man. He stayed, weathered the double weight cut. Like the UFC highly rewards men and women, who scratch the back of the company, so to speak. So I think we'll see JDM get that nice push, like you said, and get carried. I don't want to say carried along because these men earn it through combat, but get placed well, like Ian Machado Gary. How about that? I'll say it that way.
And moving on to the next fight, we had let's see. We had Otman. Otman, I like that name. Otman as a tar versus Francisco Prado. Otman, he suffers his first he suffers his first back-to-back losses via KO in the first round. Both guys, Favela had big power. Prado definitely has big power, and both guys, took him out early on in the fight. I think Otman, he has hit a wall, right? He's been beating guys, and he's a brawler. But a lot of these guys are more of a technical brawler. I think Otman's just a brawler. He just goes in there and just throws hard, and hopefully he lands. And it's not working now with these guys. You know what I mean? These guys are going to be better prepared for that style. You know what I mean? You could get away with being wild and having massive power in your hands for a long time. But then when you hit the wall, the UFC wall, like Favola and Prado, and these guys are two totally different guys, right? Like they're two totally different age. Like one's really young, the one's kind of like hitting their prime, but they're still able to like take out Otman. And Otman needs to change some things up. I don't know if he's gonna be around in the UFC for too long if he continues to fight like this. What'd you think of this fight?
I enjoyed it because it was action packed, right? That's what we want. This card was getting dogged a little bit, but as you go through the list, like a lot of people were coming off of either a small streak or a singular loss, both ends. So these fighters were fighting hard. It was awesome. Prado, pretty much early on, you could see there was just a slight advantage that carried on for as long as it lasts, and then obviously got the victory. But you know, like you said, brawler, that style. I just want to touch on that. It's almost like these you see the benefit of certain fighters who apply this. And what I'm going to talk about is they don't, just because you are a brawler by nature, come out and do some of the other stuff you're really good at, so the other side doesn't have one exact thing to set up for. Like you said, Johnny, you just come out with that brawler style. People figure you out, they watch your tape, and then it's like playing, rock paper scissors, and the guy's always going to throw a rock. Well, then you can throw paper, and ta-da, So I know it's not that simple. It's still martial art involved, but it's basically that when it comes to game plans.
Yeah, it's Prado. Since he's a young fella, what I mean, he has 100% finishing rate, which is great to see. 12 wins, 12 finishes. um, 6 knockouts, 6 submissions. He gets his first win in the UFC. You know, let him cook, man. Just let him do his thing. He's 21 years old at lightweight. Not many guys at 21 years old at lightweight. You know what I mean? Let him fight. Uh, some of the vets, you know what I mean? Some of the vets look like they're going out the that are out the door eventually. Let him fight those guys. Let him take his time. But yeah, I think Francisco is going to be a fun fighter to watch in at least the next 3 fights. You know what I mean? If he survives, because if he wants to brawl too, it's not a good thing as well. You know what I mean? For him, it's not a good thing for anybody just to be a brawler, because you know you can last for a certain amount of time, but oh, Prado said he's moving to welterweight. Okay, so
Okay.
that's even better, man. Another guy, you know what I mean, at welterweight, that's young. Let him fight anybody. Welterweight's a division of just killers, right? There's guys that are just up and top that roster, just guys that go in and go for finishes. So we'll see how he survives in that Shark Tank. Before we move along to the next fight, make sure you guys go in the descriptions and download the AllStar app, join JSpec's League, and be able to win prizes and contests, not just with JSpec, but other individuals as well on the app. There's a lot of people. I think we surpassed the 5,000 mark, maybe. I don't know for sure, right? I think we have. But yeah, we're just moving. It's growing. It's fun. So make sure you guys go in there and download that. Next fight, the South Korean Iron Turtle goes in there and gets the second round submission over Albert Juryev. I think a lot of people really, really underestimated Chunyoung Park. I believe he was the favorite in the fight, but I think a lot of people underestimated him. And man, he had his best performance to date, dude. He completely dominated Juryev, right? You know,
Yeah,
a lot of people
absolutely.
think like you got that name, Juryev, you know, you're going to be in there and crushing people. But man, the Iron Turtle, he's been fighting Russians for a long time now, even before the UFC. So he kind of understands the style and he understands what he needs to do. And he goes in there and gets that submission win, man. Duryev, he had nothing left, man. It looked like he kind of blew the wad, right? Early on.
Definitely, definitely. And at this point, I'm gonna jump on to the other side. How could you not love the Iron Turtle, man? He's entertaining. His fights are never boring. Anyways, Atman just classic case of melted under the steady technical onslaught. He was just getting beat on every level, all over the place. Good job by Junyoung Park.
Yeah, it was I really enjoy this. You know, I've did a couple rounds with Junior Park. Super nice guy. He looks like a turtle. He's a bald-headed Korean, which is very rare. Like there's never any bald Koreans walking around, but he has that perfect shaped head for that bald. You know, I don't know if he's like balding, but he's always been bald, so I have no idea. I've never seen him with hair. Let's just say that. And I've known him probably for I don't even know 7-8 years or something like that, and I've never seen him with hair. I never even asked him, but funny story is like I remember seeing him in Shenzhen. I think this was his UFC debut, if I'm not wrong. I think yeah, it was in Shenzhen before the pandemic. And let me see, was that him? Was that his first fight? It was his debut in Shenzhen in 2019. It was when Zhang Weili beat Jessica Andrade for the title. It was that event in
Oh
China.
wow.
The last event in China before the pandemic happened, right? I was there, and he fought Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy, in that fight, right? This is when
Oh,
nobody knew who Fluffy was, right? And I think Fluffy was debuting as well. It was his second fight, and Fluffy submitted him, but there was a lot of problems with Park at that time. Like there was some health issues going on ahead of that fight, which he wasn't right. So, but it showed you that man, the dude is good, right? Fluffy is very good. That loss, it you
absolutely.
know, it ages well for him. And his only other loss is to RoboCop, and he made a mistake of going in there and trying to brawl with RoboCop, right? So, you know, he learned his lesson. He's taken a more technical approach. But anyways, going back to that, I saw him in China, and then I saw him in Korea again at a regional show, and he comes up to me, he's all like, "You live in Korea?" I was like, we've seen each other so many times in Korea. Of course I live in Korea. And he's all like, I didn't know that. I thought you lived in America because I think he thought China, when we were in China, that we were in America. We were in the US. Because, sometimes these fighters, they get punched in the head for a job, so they don't remember, right?
Like, I'm
There's
here.
there's like fighters that I remember meeting and seriously like hanging out with like during the events and stuff, and then like months later seeing them again and they don't know who I am. It's like, dude, we hung out for like a whole day basically.
We got
And
matching tattoos.
Yeah, he's just like, but Junior Park, man, he's 7-2 in the UFC. He's about to hit 10 fights. He's beaten some decent names. Now it's time for him to kind of, bump it up, right? At 185. Like he needs to face somebody, with a decent following, something. He kind of gets that push. That's 4 in a row for him. 3 finishes in a row, all rear naked choke finishes. So he basically beats the shit out of you and then takes you to the ground and chokes you out. That's just kind of like his style. So I love him. He's a great and the dance after he won, that's called the Ajashi dance. Ajashi is like old man in Korea. That's
Oh,
what you call an
nice.
old man. Like any old man, you call him like Ajashi. And that was like typical Ajashi dance, like a drunk Ajashi dance. Like you don't know what they're trying to do, but they're moving their whole body in different directions. But it seems like they're enjoying their time. So the Ajashi
Definitely.
dance. I hope people remember that. That's his style now.
I love it. I love the dance, and it immediately ignited the internet. I mean, brother wasn't even through his post fight interviews. I think it was already a GIF. So,
For
uh,
sure. All right, let's move on to the next fight. The next fight was a women's featherweight fight, which a lot of people thought the division was gone, but I guess not. We had Chelsea Chandler, who heading into this matchup, very confident in herself and her abilities. Norma Dumont hasn't really done the best in her last couple of fights. Chelsea labeled her a boring fighter, and that really ignited Dumont. That's what she needed, right? And the first round was, she started off hot, right? She clipped Chelsea Chandler with a nice little combination, had Chelsea running across the cage and hugging the fence. It was weird, right? That was weird, right? Like she kind of like lost like the moment that she like lost her mind a little bit and didn't realize she was in a fight, and then all of a sudden Dumont is chasing her. But then Dumont went back to her old ways and was boring for the rest of the fight. Like the round 2 and 3, she just basically just said, okay, I'm gonna take the fight to the ground and really do nothing and win the fight, right?
I
It's
don't know, but
disappointing, right? To me, she won, but it was disappointing.
it is disappointing. It's disappointing when someone calls you out for being boring. You beat them and you were boring. Like no matter what, you have one win and one loss in that scenario if you're keeping it real, because you proved the shit talk right. On the other hand, winning is all that matters. Good job, Miss Dumont. And on the other side, you made her the B side of one of the hottest gifts and memes out there. Her getting Chelsea to turn 180, sprint into the cage, face plant against the cage, it instantly blew up Twitter. I mean, there was jokes. I mean, we weren't even out of the round in the space, and people had her Dumont chasing Chelsea and parallel with the Terminator 2. Like we weren't even out of the second round yet. So, hey, took her. That's almost like taking that momentum and at least putting some shine on your name. We're talking about you, Miss Dumont. Even though if it's a fight, let's be real. Just like this, many fights happen. We don't spend too long talking about it, but you blew up the internet by making your opponent eat her words, at least temporarily.
I like the energy that Chandler brings, right? She brings an unwithering confidence about herself, and she's not afraid to say what she wants to say. I mean, she'll say what's on her mind. And in this game, you can say what you want to say, and you have to eat your words, right? Eventually, or your words are gold, and you go out there and you do phenomenal against your opponent. In this fight, not so much. You saw the experience gap between Dumont and Chandler, right? Chandler's a little bit greener than Dumont. Dumont has faced the top of the division and has been around the UFC for a while. But it was a good win for Dumont, but I don't think it really does too much negative. It drops the stock of Chelsea Chandler a little bit, but nothing too crazy, right? I think she could come back and win a fight against a lot of these other girls, right? She's just not experienced, and Dumont just had better top game wrestling, and Chandler had no answers for that. So we'll see what happens. Does Dumont fight for the title? Probably not, right? This division is probably just going to be around just to throw fights at featherweight from time to time. But I don't think that they're going to have any kind of like title. And if they do, there's these rumors about Ronda Rousey coming back. I see her. Yeah, I could see her coming back. And clip this if you want to. Ronda Rousey comes back, gets an immediate title shot at featherweight against possibly Norma Dumont, and wins by submission and becomes the featherweight world champion. And then they just feed her like a fight like once or twice a year of people that the UFC thinks that possibly she will be able to beat coming up from bantamweight. And I could see that happening. You know what I mean? This is the new UFC. This is not the old UFC from 5-10 years ago. This is the new UFC where it's like money is everything. If it's generating money, that is everything. I know they do certain things that might not generate as much money, but they got to move the divisions along. They have to move the promotion along. But a lot of the times, man, it's all about the money for them now. Dude, they were just valued at 12 billion, dude. Valued at 12 billion recently. That's crazy.
It is.
And I can see Ronda Rousey coming back. They throw money at Ronda Rousey. She could do one fight a year and make movies. Like make 2 movies a year, fight once a year for the next 3 years. That will blow up the UFC. That will blow up Ronda Rousey. That will just blow up everything for everybody. And, you know, they'll make so much money. And I think if Ronda Rousey is really coming back, I could see that happening. You know, Ronda Rousey versus Macy Shazan. Ronda Rousey versus a lot of these women that have a tough time making 135. They can fight at 145, and the Ronda Rousey, you know, can come back and win. Just wondering if she's been training or not, right? Because 145 probably isn't that hard for her to make, right? But we'll see.
145 would be the most realistic thing to ask her to make, considering where she's at in age plus motherhood. Like, give her all the credit in the world. Plus, you know, wrestling, like that's not an easy life. But on the other hand, John, I 100% respectfully disagree. I know the UFC offered her the immediate title shot to come back and save air quote the division. I don't think she's taking it. There's been no pictures, videos, anything leaking that she's been training, even on the DL. Like the game for the women, thank goodness they were late to the party. Sorry for the late invitation, women. But now that you're here, your portion of the sport is advancing at 3 times the pace the men's division grew in the same amount of time. So it's exponentially bad odds to a division that's already dying by the embers, which I also disagree. I think they're going to breathe life back into it, and 145 will rise again. But I don't think on the cost and the hopes of I hate to say this, but to Ronda Rousey in MMA, an outdated product. Hate to say that since we're on selling shows, you know, selling fights. That's what I think.
Well, look at the Ultimate Fighter. It's an outdated product, and they just brought in a guy they thought that could save the show, but he hasn't saved the show. He's 0-7 or something like that, and he's starting to lose his mind. And I don't think people really care about it as much anymore, to be honest with you. Like, he's not. Is he bringing in the crazy ratings? I have no idea. I haven't watched the rest of the shows. I just watched the first episode, and then watched clips of the other episodes, and I don't know. I don't know what's going on with it.
It's I've been trying to keep up with it every week, and I put a little tweets out and see what the reaction is. The reaction was strong in the beginning, not so much right now. Who did Conor McGregor bring back to tough? That was the big question. That was the whole draw of it. And the answer so far that I've seen, John, is the hardcores. The hardcores that wrote off the show previously were back, but it didn't suddenly gravitate a whole new fan base. There was a maybe swing and a miss in that department.
All right. I don't know. Let me just text somebody real quick. All right. So, yeah. So like, they're going to do cash grabs. That's what they're going to do. Because why? If the cash is there, they're going to grab it while they can. Because delaying it really doesn't have an effect for them. If they delay it, it's not going to make them more money. It's just like, let's take it let's take advantage of it right now as quickly as possible. It's like Musk versus Zuck, same thing. They're just trying to take advantage of it as quickly as possible and be the first ones. And why would Musk and Zuck want to fight for the UFC when they could just do it on their own and put it on
Uh,
YouTube?
I don't know, but the amount of people who bought Zuck versus
Is there a
Musk,
lot of people?
dude, during fight week, it was a lot. Like way more
Everybody
than I
was wearing the
thought.
same shirt.
I want to say everybody, but it was like one of those, hey, more people were wearing it than I thought people would be wearing it. So
Hey, Eskimo
we're
cousins,
yeah,
Eskimo
exactly.
brothers.
Yeah,
So
with the
like, a lot of
t-shirts.
people are really into it. Then
I know
it's a
everybody would.
novelty thing. It's like
That's
Hasbula.
the that's what it is. That's exactly. It's for the comedy at this point. I don't even know how
Okay.
serious people think it. I think this just sounds funny to say.
The last fight on the main card was between Nazim Sadikov and Terrence McKinney. Two guys, both guys I really like. Both guys I've interviewed in the past. Both guys are young. I think Terrence is a little bit younger than Nazim. Terrence has still, a lot of people are gonna dump on Terrence because he lost this fight. Um, but I don't think you should dump on him too hard. He's still young. He's still a developing fighter. He blew onto the scene so quick, right? Just imagine if he was one of the guys that were just like, oh, he's exciting, but he didn't come in on short notice against Drew Dober and almost beat Drew Dober. Like he didn't come in on short notice against Matt Frola and knocked him out in record time. Like if he didn't do that and if he just won his fights, people wouldn't be really talking about him. He wouldn't be garnering the interest, right? But since he did those things, now people are putting him under the magnifying glass. And I think we should sit back and let this dude develop, right? Even though he's fighting, maybe he lost this fight, right? He lost by submission. But the thing is, like, let him, develop a little bit. If he loses, he loses. If he wins, he wins. You know what I mean? Look at, there's a lot of guys that they do this to, right? The fans especially. But yeah, man, let's let Terrence develop with his new camp as well. This is his first fight with his new camp in Texas. Let him work. Let him get gelled in with them. Nazim, he's been ready for the UFC for a long time, so this is nothing new. Props to him for taking out Terrence McKinney. Both the guys said that they wanted violence, and we got violence in that fight, man. What'd you think of Nazim, Nasty Nas from New York, Brooklyn?
He's great. And then Nas, the music artist, Queensbridge. But anyways, dude, Nas, both of them kill it. McKinney now on that slippery slope that a lot of quick rising names find themselves in, where they get a little bit of a skid, a little bit of a situation going. People in the space while we're doing it live starting to question, hey, he was really successful on his feet. Why is he so committed down to the wrestling, And yes, he showed some good grappling skills in another fight, but people starting to wonder, hey, that knockout that you suffered, is that playing in your head? Is that why you don't want to strike? And now you end up goofing around on the ground too long and paying the price. So, hey, all's well, effort well put by both men. It's not like either person got walked. They gave each other some competition. The better man won the fight. I like it, and I don't think, just like you said, John, I don't think there's anything that you don't detract from a young talent that has a little bump in the road. It's not the worst thing in the world, and I definitely think Terrence McKinney will win fights ahead of time, like you said. But right now, it's Nas's time. He gets a dub. He gets all the credit.
Yeah, definitely. It's shout out to Nas and what he's doing, and McKinney, man, he'll be back. I really enjoy both these guys when they fight. You know what I mean? Pre-fight as well. You know what I mean? They're fully confident. They're working hard as hell on improving themselves. And yeah, man, these guys are the future of the lightweight division. We talked about Francisco, who's 21 years old, right? We just fought at lightweight, but he's moved up to welterweight. Think of that, you know what I mean? Being that age, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, M is bringing up a point right here about McKinney has a point that the fence grab changed the fight. Also, McKinney's base is wrestling. Yes, McKinney's base is definitely wrestling. That's his background. Yeah, M is right too. His knockouts have people thinking he was a striker. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, man, his base is wrestling. He's always been a wrestler. His knockouts, yes. He's like a supreme athlete. Like he's so athletic, right? So he gets away with a lot of things other guys wouldn't. But also in his last fight when he was knocked out by the flying knee, did you know that he was eye poked and he couldn't see in that fight before the fight? I believe it was
Oh,
warming up. So he couldn't see in that fight. That's why you see him like kind of flinching a lot in that fight because he couldn't see anything. So that's what happened. I don't know what happened this fight. There's fence grabs. People are gonna be like, "Oh, he's just making excuses." But this is the game, man. Like, I don't think of those things as excuses. I just think that that's reality. That's what they had to deal with, and
if
we saw a
yeah,
lot of fence grabs all the time. Like now, it's like becoming a major problem where fighters. And I don't blame them. I'll do the same exact thing. If you're gonna take me down and you're not gonna take a point away for fence grabs, I'm grabbing the fence too
dude,
because it does change the game. It changed the fight, right?
absolutely. I mean,
So
we have fighters out there taking the free eye poke because they know you're not gonna get one if you
yeah, if you
if you
go
do
hit
it
him in the
just the right
nuts,
way. Yeah,
if
hit
you
them
hit
in
him
the
in the
nuts.
nuts, you get a break. Or
Right.
maybe if you're out there and the dude's kicking, you throw your nuts in front of their kick, so you get kicked in the nuts and you could take a break. You never know, right? This is all part of like what people can probably possibly do inside that cage thinking.
All of those things have been done, man. It's combat. It's warfare of the mind and body happening all at once. We're humans. Like this is our shit. Everything's possible, man.
Yeah. But anyways, those things are happening. We need to do something about it. I don't know if we need to do something, but the commissions need to do something about it. But we know the commissions don't do shit. Like they just sit at the table and collect their checks. And that's it. That's about it, man. I wish they would do an investigation. There has to be some type of corruption going on there. You know what I mean? It's just part of the game. But anyways, that's not what the podcast is about. We're about recapping the show. Anybody on the prelims you thought stood out to you?
I want to go to um sorry, I missed it real quick. To the Elder fight, Evan Elder against Gennaro Valdez. That was a good fight. Um I also want to give the love and credit to Azat Maksum making his promotional debut against a veteran in Tyson Nam. So, you just don't go from regionals to the main show against a near 30 fight something veteran in Nam and win. That doesn't happen very often. So that has my attention on Mr. Maksum. I hope all the best for you, bud. You got my eyes on you, man.
Yeah. I actually going back to Azad Maxim, right? Like I know a little bit about him, so I tweeted out something, and then Brendan Fitzgerald like shouted me out again. Shout out to Brendan Fitzgerald, man. He's always shouting me out on the broadcast. He's done it a few times now, and yeah, and I appreciate that a lot. I mean, um, like I always say, I'm not the most famous, I'm not the best, but I do my thing, and that's about it. Um, Tyson Nam, I love Tyson Nam, but uh, Azat just kept him guessing throughout the whole fight and did a good job of staying away from the power. Evan Elder, I think he's also the future of the division at lightweight as well. I could see Elder fighting. Uh, and we saw what he did against Nazim. He was winning against Nazim, and he got cut. Right, so
Mm-hmm.
those three guys, man, they're gonna be fighting in the UFC for a good minute. They're gonna beat a lot of guys, right? They're gonna beat a lot of guys coming up. And yeah, and Elvin Elder, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet as well. I mean, I've interviewed him a few times. Um, Alex Munoz comes back after 3 years away and gets a unanimous decision against Carl Deaton. That was a good win for him. I mean, I think that was like a perfect matchup for him to come back after such a long layoff. Um, but
Prove me
yeah, that's
wrong. I picked
yeah,
against him, so prove me wrong. Good job, Mr. Munoz.
yeah. And the last thing was Estela Nunez, getting that dislocated elbow. It almost looked like she had like kind of like already an injury or something, right? Because it looked like she just kind of planted it like anybody else would plant it, but though I guess the weight distribution, um, you know, I guess the
You
weight
know,
distribution was not right, and there you go. That's what happens. Um, yeah, that's
for,
it. That's the recap of the event. We're gonna get into a couple other topics. Make sure you guys put your opinions in the chat if you're watching live. If not, just put your opinions in the comments below. Make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, make your picks for UFC events and join the community down there and J Specs League. Win prizes, win autographed memorabilia, win you know,
All kinds of
panties. I
awesome
don't
stuff.
know, whatever he's got over there.
We're giving away all kinds of awesome stuff, man.
Yeah,
And thank you to the MMA community that keeps coming, keeps supporting, and keeps growing. It makes it awesome. Thank you all.
there you go. Now, today I woke up this morning. Right now in the East, it is 10 a.m. So in the morning, I woke up and I look at Twitter, and now you got Bellator fighters profiles on the UFC.com website, right? So people are starting to pull. I don't know who does this, like, but these guys are like watching the UFC.com website real close. I never barely ever go to UFC.com website because
Yeah,
it's
yeah, me
trash,
neither.
dude. Like
Yeah,
it's a terrible website to go to. But these reporters, man, that cover the sport, they saw that like Pitbull, Patricio Pitbull's up there, AJ McKee's up there, Jose Canseco is up there with a profile. There's like a lot of Bellator fighters. I think Jose Canseco he didn't fight for Bellator. I think he fought for like a Japanese promotion. But anyways, a lot of Bellator fighters profiles are up without pictures. And I
okay.
guess they've been up there since April.
Huh.
And the rumors all year this year have been PFL is going to buy Bellator.
Right.
PFL and Bellator are going to merge. And
Right.
this is the big rumor. And there were some other like, big, big conglomerate companies, right, that were also bidding for Bellator, right? And it didn't seem like Scott Coker was denying it that, there was something going on. But the UFC buying Bellator, is it good for the sport? Like, is it good for mixed martial arts? And I say, no, it's not. J Spec, what do you think?
I think that it's probably not, if we're just answering that question straight up, because it's literally like history repeating itself over and over. Like, so every time Scott Coker makes a brand that has a roster worth a damn and has some kind of relative value, you're gonna buy it. Um, that seems weird, but hey, these guys know what they're doing, I guess. Are we 110% sure? Like, because the UFC has accidentally dropped content and stuff that wasn't true or was this or that. We had the graphics leaked at one time, but it was the incorrect ones. Like, who knows? Like, until Mr. Coker and the gang at Bellator or something officially says something, I don't know about any and all of this now, because like John said, it's been a wild ride. We were told pretty clearly that PFL was the lead horse in the bidding, that it got accepted, even to the point where they're just hashing out details. Scott Coker saying you'll find out more in 60 to 90 days. I'm lost. I'm be honest. I'm lost in the middle of this storm. And I just hope that whatever does come of it is, like you said, John, good for MMA as a whole.
Does the UFC have the money to buy Bellator? Yes, they have the money.
Oh yeah.
Guaranteed they have the money. They just
Oh yeah.
was valued at $12 billion. Like, that
Yeah.
was something that nobody could imagine in their wildest dreams, that the UFC would be worth that much. Maybe Dana White. But the reason why I say it's not good for the sport is because in sports we need competition. And in free agency, we need competition for fighters to get paid more. And if the UFC buys Bellator, which would their roster would be insane if they combine the rosters, right? UFC's roster is insane anyways, and Bellator's roster is insane as well. But if they combine forces, it's just, man, who is going to compete with them? Like, PFL is not even number 2. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like PFL is not even going to be in the same bracket as the UFC. Like, PFL, they do their season, they have their like pay-per-view thing that they're doing with Francis and Jake Paul. But is that going to be MMA? Is that going to be boxing? Is that even going to draw eyes? Like, they're still figuring things out, right? That means like the UFC is not even thinking about the PFL. It's just like, yeah, it's there and we're on the same channel. It just shows you how like low that they look at PFL, the UFC, that they allowed the PFL to sign the broadcasting deal with ESPN. You know what I mean? Because I think if they were like the major competitor, I don't think that they would like that so much to UFC, right? Because then they're on the same channel. They, they don't want to share space. That's why the UFC never co-promotes, right? Because they don't want to share the space with anybody. My biggest concern is fighter pay. If they combine forces, fighter pay is not going to be better, and that's a travesty because we need fighter pay to rise and rise and rise. And with the PFL, one thing good about them is they're a competitor of the UFC at this moment in free agency, in terms of free agency, and they're paying their fighters much more and giving them a different avenue. You know what I mean? There's a reason why Francis signed with PFL, right? They're allowing a little bit more flexibility with the fighters, and they're offering $1 million every year for the tournament winners, right? On top of, whatever they're getting paid for the fights during the season. UFC, they get Bellator, man. Like, you have one other option now. You don't even have two options. Maybe you have three. I don't know. But major promotions, there's not many of them out there, right? It's not like there's 10 major promotions. There's less than 5 major promotions. So if you suck up another one of them, because think about if Strikeforce was still around and Pride was still around, that would make it like 5, 6 major promotions in the world, right? And that would have changed the landscape of free agency, right? Changed it,
Much sooner, yeah.
Yeah, much sooner. And I think that's the concern for me is if this is real, if the UFC buys Bellator, I don't know if are they able to buy Bellator, especially with all the antitrust lawsuits and things about them being a monopoly. They're in court about that. Are people even thinking about that?
Who knows? But that's outside of my automotive technology degree. Does not cover antitrust laws knowledge. But
yeah, I try to get Pat on the show because he knows a lot about that. He knows what's going on and he understands that aspect of the game, the more of the business side. But hopefully we'll have him on in the future to talk about that a little bit more. If this is still a rumor or if this actually happens.
You know what's funny? Okay, let's just play scenario. PFL buys Bellator, makes new genuine threat by combining the rosters to UFC as far as entertainment goes. So good thing for MMA. The direct opposite action, UFC acquiring Bellator, creates like global empire over the MMA community again. Once again, sheds, and bad thing. It's crazy how just switching the name and order of operations of who's buying who completely changes the outcome of this deal. Whoever is the lucky dog in the Bellator lottery that is going on right now.
Yeah, it's because like you said, history repeats itself. They bought Pride, who was the biggest competitor, probably the biggest promotion at that moment. They went and bought them, but it was dying too at the same time. So Pride wanted to dump off what they could. Strikeforce, it was at its peak. They went in and bought them. They always had the WEC absorb them. You know what I mean? Now they're gonna go after Bellator if this is actually even true. Maybe somebody just started this. They're just fucking with people, right? They're just because it's just like the website managers, right? They're just putting these up. But anyways, it's that's only my concern, man. I don't care about fighters being with one promotion or another, but what I care about is fighters getting paid the most and they can get paid throughout their career. So when they retire, they're not bums on the street. They're not living on Skid Row, right?
Yeah,
they're not
exactly.
They're not, like we're not seeing these stories about guys, because there's a lot that goes with fighting, man. A lot brain damage, a lot of health issues. And, we've seen what brain damage can do with the NFL, man. Like we've seen some scary shit go down with NFL players who has been suffering brain damage since they were fucking in Little League in Pop Warner or whatever you want to call it. And man, there has been some tragedies, man, with this.
Absolutely.
And fighting MMA, we're still in its infancy and we're going to see those tragedies. Have we seen any? We've probably seen some, we just forgot. But I'm saying like it's going to happen in the future. Like somebody really, and I think for fighter pay being higher, it helps them to maybe retire earlier if they could. Another option for them if they're getting paid more money is more money maybe can go into like studying the effects of brain damage and blows to the head, things like that, and that could help fighters in the future. There's a lot that goes into it. The UFC says that they're doing studies, but we never hear about what's going on, right? um
Right.
they're going through weight cuts. Who knows what that can do to your body at an old age, and stuff like that. So it's concerning, man. But if they do buy them, am I going to be like, oh, I'm going to shut it off? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna
No.
still watch because I
Eh,
enjoy it, and
Here's the
not
interesting.
still talk shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. And I think an interesting side story, if you're into the drama, right, is like, hey, PFL, obviously we saw you coming along doing well. And then you want to almost kind of go like, hey, we're coming, almost calling out the champ, right? Calling out the UFC. Like, we're acquiring your guy. We're giving him the deal that you didn't want to, that's in Francis, and making a big push. We're going to broadcast on the same network. Like, we're coming for you. And what if this is a mega power play? Like, no, I'm going to chop you out right now before you even fuse together with a longtime number 2 in Bellator. I'm just going to snatch that option right away from you, and with one grab, kill 2 weeds, if you will. That would be some UFC like monopoly without direct monopoly shit right there.
It would, but like I said, monopoly.
Not
Is
good
that
for the fighters.
possible? This is not 10 years ago, so we'll see what happens. Um, I want to give your thoughts if you're watching live in the comments about maybe possibly the UFC buying Bellator. Now, moving on before we shut it down, we want to talk about Jamal Hill and the tragedy that he has faced in his career, or recently in his career, which is vacating. Because I think for a fighter, you spend years and years and years of suffering basically to become the UFC champion,
Mm-hmm.
and then to just give it up, to vacate it because of an accident, because of something that happened to you. It must be heart-wrenching, right, for Jamal Hill, right? And fighters, they put on a strong face, but man, they're just human beings just like everybody else. Now, the stupidity of how he did it is another story. The information, what exactly happened, J Spec?
I don't know exactly what happened, but I know the gist of it was that he was playing basketball in Las Vegas. Lucky Las Vegas, not always. But I don't know if there's any other details within it, but I just know playing basketball here.
Was it the basketball game? Was it the Schmoes basketball game? Is that because it was during
Oh,
International Fight Week, right?
at that part, I don't know. I have no idea.
I
Sorry, no
think I
disrespect to
think
the
it was.
Schmo and his Schmo's basketball game. I have no idea.
I think it was, man. I think it was during the Schmoes basketball game. I think Daniel Cormier crossed him up and it blew out his Achilles. I'm not for sure, but anyways,
Wow.
um, it's terrible to see, man. And now it's like, is the light heavyweight division cursed? Because ever since John Jones left, what has happened? Think about what has happened ever since John Jones has left.
One of the greatest things in the division's history, Glover Teixeira becomes champion at 42. Um,
Yes, he
I,
did. He did become champion.
that's a golden hype mark. But yes, other than that, it's plagued almost every belt holder that has it. It's like one and dones basically across the board, right? Like Jan gets it, then has to give it up, and then Teixeira gets it, has to give it up, and then Yuri gets it, blows out his shoulder, has to give it up. Not has to give it up, but passes along too. Like
And
it's
then
it's it's a hot
Jan
potato.
Jan versus
Ankalev
Ankalaev
goes to a
becomes a
draw.
draw,
When does that
and
happen?
yeah, and then Jamal Lewis and Glover gets booked right away, and everybody wanted Glover to win, but then Jamal Lewis goes out there and puts on the best performance of his life, and then he blows out his Achilles, which is an injury that could be a career ender for a lot of people, right, in certain
Yeah,
sports. So he'll be out
Mis-
for a while,
Mr.
and
Hill. I mean, you got to give him credit though, right? I mean, I think we should give him credit for being graceful as much as you can. Like you said, John, this sucks balls, dude. Like you're the champion of the world, and you got to give it up because of that. Like, but he said something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing of, "I got my opportunity, this blessing through Yuri passing it up through his like basically because of his injury. Like I'm doing the same, keep it moving." And I don't know how true this is, but I heard that the UFC promised and I'm doing this because without a contract we don't know nothing. But promise him an immediate crack at the title whenever he's good to
Well,
go.
that's what they said the Yuri too.
No,
Like, are they going to
May-
both come back from injury? I don't. Yeah, the division has to move along. I say just give Hyon and Pereira the title fight. Now you get 2 title fights in Las Vegas. It only helps, and it makes the division have a new champion immediately, and it moves the division along. And when Yuri's ready to come back, he'll come back to a champion, right? It doesn't matter if it's Jamal Lewis. It doesn't Jamal Hill. It doesn't
Hill.
matter if it's uh, Ankalaev. It doesn't matter, right? Because he's gonna have to fight for the title, anyways. It's not like they're just gonna give it back to him. So
Right.
let's put in there, and if Pereira wins and he becomes a champion, great for Pereira, dude. Like the dude has become a 2 division champion in no time, right? And then a lot of people want to fight him, and maybe Pereira's gonna be a different animal at 205, right? Because everybody talks about it. Like he's much bigger, you know what I
I
mean, and physically.
I know I have to get used to it, but I'm not just yet. You're right. The UFC is a new era. That could very well happen. I'm just on a little bit still stuck on the merit system, and it's just hard for me to reward Alex Pereira. Like, hey, dude, try this second division title based on no activity in the weight class and the fact that you just lost your title in a lower weight class. It's hard for me to fully sign up on that. But with your argument of keeping this blood flowing and letting these other men heal and letting the whole process work out, I'm for it. I don't like it a whole lot, but I'm for it.
Yeah, there's always going to be 2 sides of the fence, right? There's going to be the side of people saying merit. This guy deserves it. This match deserves it. And then there's the side of money and moving the promotion along. And that's what the UFC is about. They don't care about, they care a little bit about what the fans want, but at the end of the day, if it's going to make them money and more of like more of the casual fans, not like the hardcore fans, they don't care what the UFC doesn't care about hardcore fans. They
No,
don't.
because we're here already. They know
Yeah.
they know we're gonna be here, rain or shine, no matter what they do. We'll be here. So you're right. They don't do it for us.
They don't care. They don't, they'll listen, but they don't care. I mean, they see their comments and stuff like that, but they're not targeting that people. They're targeting the 18 to 32 demographic that are not the hardcores, that are the ones that are going to open their pocketbooks and buy the Zuck versus Must t-shirts and the pay-per-views and come in, like once a month to watch UFC, not like they're here every weekend, right? And if they are, then they're watching it on ESPN, which helps them even more, pulls up the ratings. But yeah, it's terrible situation for Hill, sucks for Yuri. But what can you do, man? This is the game. This is a game of it's the hurt business. Everybody gets hurt. Everybody gets injured. Everybody has pain and suffering, and
If
so do
any,
we.
yeah, definitely. And just to throw this out there, now I know for a little bit we're getting sick of this division because the forever running reign of John Jones. But I think in a weird way of now being out of the division and seeing how often this belt changes hands, it only kind of makes what John Jones had already previously done so much more special in a weird way.
It does, man. It is weird. Very, 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 very weird. But what can you do, man? It's the game, and the game moves along just like us. We will be shutting it down now. Next week we'll be back on our regularly scheduled time of Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. Sicko will be back. We might have a 4th guest. I'm still like thinking about that a little bit more of maybe bring 4th guest. We'll have four people in the chat. Could be a possibility, but guaranteed, me, J Spec, and Sicko will be back on the live show. We'll talk more. Next week is UFC London. Some interesting matchups there. Not the most exciting card compared to like let's say the last London card, but this is the UFC. You got to get used to it. Casual fans don't know about that. Casual fans are not thinking like, oh, this card is better than this card. No, casual fans are just thinking like, oh, who's fighting? Oh, that sounds like it would be cool to watch. And then they watch it. They're not talking about the strength of the card or anything like that. But for us, we always talk about it because
I think, yeah, man, and I'm
yeah.
looking forward to it. Join us for, right there on Twitter to watch along with us. Every UFC event, doesn't matter the strength of the card or who the headliner is, we'll be there. And I'm just gonna say, I'm personally really looking forward to the return of Tom Aspinall. I think that's worthy to talk about.
There you go. And we'll talk about it next week. Everybody, make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, make your picks on UFC fights, join JSpec's League, win prizes, autograph memorabilia, and other good stuff. Um, yeah, and that's about it. Join JSpec on his spaces if you're on Twitter, and get in the convo. Follow him, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.